The Independent Candidate Association is today heading to the Constitutional Court to challenge the Electoral Amendment Act. Now, this comes after President Cyril Ramaphosa signed the Electoral Amendment Bill into law in April. ICA says it is lodging papers to challenge the constitutionality of the act that will govern the 2024 elections. It says the Electoral Amendment Act works in favour of political parties, the bigger political parties. However, the Electoral Commission of South Africa has expressed concern that court challenges will harm the preparations for the national and provincial elections next year. In studio with us, we've got the chairman of the Independent Candidate Association, Michael Louis, who's going to discuss the matter further. Michael, great to have you. Thanks very much for coming in. So it is a big day for you. You are heading into the Constitutional Court today, but let's give a little bit of background. And the Act should give effect to that June 2020 Constitutional Court ruling that independent candidates are allowed to contest the national and provincial elections. So your argument is that the playing fields are still completely unequal, like in a dramatic way. Perhaps you want to talk to us, what is at the heart of your challenge?
Well, at the heart of the challenge, and I think, thank goodness, Leanne, that we've got a constitutional dispensation where our rights are so protected, you know, and if we look at our constitutional rights of equality, human dignity, they're very strong rights, you know, all the Chapter 2 rights. So actually what we're first doing is to challenge all those rights. Because what this bill has done is, and what Parliament has done is, in our opinion, is that they've done an administrative duty to say the Court has made the decision that independence must now be part of it, but they've done it administratively just to incorporate independence into the system. But they haven't looked at the human dignity and the human rights issues. And that's what we're all going to challenge. So what we do challenge is all the Chapter 2 issues, that every citizen has got equality and has got the same rights. Yeah. And this Electoral Act actually does differentiate between political parties and independent candidates. So let me give the viewers just a view of what has actually happened. So if Leanne Manners wants to go and stand as an independent candidate, because I'm sure most of the viewers agree that we want to get new voices and new actors and new leaders on the playing fields. And to us, you know, that's not politically involved. We're just wanting to help. We're just wanting to say, how can we get involved to help the politicians? But what the politicians done, and I must say it's been 2.5 years of a very strenuous process, more than 30 meetings, Home Affairs meetings with Parliament. And what they've done is they've actually made it impossible for independent candidates to stand in. And because I'm chairman of an Independent Candidates Association, I have to look after their rights. Yeah. So now Leanne Manners wants to stand as an independent candidate. And now there's regional elections. Leanne Manners, to get elected in Gauteng, must get 91,000 votes. Okay. Where in previous elections, the parliamentarians that are there need to get 43,000. But what they've done is independent candidates in Gauteng must get 91,000, but a political party, if they want to get into Parliament, they get 43,000 votes, which means that there's a 114% increase in what independent candidates must get. Yeah. And so what we're doing is we said to ourselves, we don't just want to shoot missiles and say, you're wrong, but what do we do? And what is our solution? And that's the remedy that I think is going to be very interesting, and to see how the playing field is going to take up our challenge. Because we've looked and said, but listen, you can't differentiate. We've always said to you from the beginning, you can't just incorporate independent candidates into this whole system. But now that we're there, how can we just work with it, not to delay and be a destructive force with the elections that are coming up? And we did 9.2 million simulations of how would elections look like as a remedy for independent candidates to really stand.
So ideally, how should it look? Because
that's what I'm going to come to.
And that's what I want to very quickly get from you, is if we do that, and I mean, as it stands right now, 91,000 votes for me, but for a party, 42,000 votes, it doesn't really make sense. What should it look like?
So what happens is we've got 400 members of Parliament, 200 elected directly, and 200 compensatory. So with our simulations that we did, we're now changing it and going to the courts today to say, please make it 350 seats direct and 50 compensatory, which means that Leanne Manners now needs to get 49,000 votes and political parties 43. And we've worked it out with our simulations that this is the closest we can get, that political parties and independent candidates will be play equally on the playing field.
How will this affect the IEC? Because one of the biggest problems is they're saying any delays will delay the elections because they need the time to organise. Have you simulated this? Have you thought about that as well?
No, but, obviously, and we respect it so much. And the big thing is, that's why our application is very focused, very streamlined. Because you can imagine, if we're only going to ask for a striking in and writing in clause today, the 350 and 50 is post-elections. So it's only going to be once everybody's voted after the elections, this is how the seats are going to be allocated. So this doesn't impose on the work of the IEC at all.
Okay.
And so we're really wanting to say to the IEC that we're there in their camp. We're wanting to make sure that we don't impose on and make their task difficult, but we're not going to compromise on human rights and what is right and fitting and a fair and free election.
What difference is this going to make? So let's put this basically. The elections are around the corner. We are going to have to go to the ballot stations, vote for these independent candidates and the parties. Voting for an independent candidate to go into this big monster called Parliament, you know, you worry that you think, okay, is my vote really going to count when I'm up against these mammoth parties? Why does an independent candidate, what is the difference? What are they going to do that is not already being done?
Well, I think the big thing is that the truth be told is that political parties do attract a different type of individual than an independent candidate. Because for an independent candidate to make it, they must be an influencer. They're not going to be able to make it if they're not. So people often ask me that question about what will an independent candidate, what difference that can make. So I have to ask you the question, if Thuli Madonsela decides to stand, do you think she'll be able to make a difference within the dispensation of Parliament? And I've been there in the 1990s and 1998, 1999, when I was one person, and it all happens in the standing committees. It happens when your voice, your one voice, can really influence the trajectory of bills, administrative work. And I really believe it's not only about independent candidates standing, it's about getting new voices and new players onto the playing field.
Yeah, because when we look at the system right now, there are so many complaints and so many people are feeling like their hands are tied. It's like, okay, so our grid is collapsing. Well, what can we do about it besides go and spend a whole bunch of money to try and buffer ourselves? We're looking at the water situation and seeing people dying around us. That number is increasing on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So what can we do about it? And, you know, we see cases, criminal cases coming up, and you think, but it's not right to have money stuffed in your couch, or it's not right to upgrade your home like that. But we as South Africans think, well, where do our voices come in? Is that perhaps where independent candidates come and make that little difference? Do they fit into there as well? Because it seems like more like the party is there protecting itself as opposed to protecting the interests of South Africans.
Well, you know, Leanne, you have to be in the belly of the beast of a political party. It's like the difference being an entrepreneur and being in a corporate environment. It attracts a different type of person, you know, and that's what we're trying to do as the organization I serve, the Independent Candidates Association, is to identify those leaders, but also to get the best practices worldwide, to be able to train them, equip them, because to be a politician is not one day just to decide, you know, I want to go and sit in Parliament. You need to be trained, equipped, get to know the laws, what are the legislative powers that you have, and then to take them and be their backing, but also to make them accountable, because everybody says, but who are they going to be accountable to? Well, it's the independent cancer associations like the Law Society. You know, if you steal trust money as a lawyer, you're going to be reprimanded and go to court and be struck from the roll. The same rules that we've put in the association, you're going to be accountable to the association. We will hold you accountable. You step out of line and you will be reprimanded. reprimanded.
So today's the big day. You're headed off to the Constitutional Court. What are you hoping, just very quickly, at the end of the day, will come out of today's session?
Leanne, I really, this has been 2.5 years. I've been involved since 2018. We really believe that, and we're so proud to have a Constitutional Court that we trust in, that we believe in, that they will do a striking off and writing in clause that at the end of the day, the 400 members of Parliament, our leaders of our country, will be divided 350 directly elected by the people and only 50 on the proportional seats.
All right, Michael, looking forward to hearing the outcome of all of this, and that's something no doubt you'll be reading about and hearing about. This is the chairman of the Independent Candidate Association, Michael Louis, saying that Independent Candidate Association off to the Constitutional Court today to challenge the Electoral Amendment Act. Thanks for joining us in studio.
Thank you, Leanne.